Hello, and welcome to Rethinking Our History, where we seek to shed a light on events that have been forgotten and covered up, and to make us all question how much do we really know about our history? I'm Felicia.
And I'm Ian, and we are here to reveal all the sordid details of history that have been swept under the rug. Get ready to get angry, be curious, and maybe have a laugh or two as we rethink our history.
Hello, friends.
Hey guys.
Oh, sorry, I got a frog in my throat. Thanks for joining us for another lesson, number 71.
Yeah.
Yeehaw. I think that's how old your dad is currently.
Yeah.
We are back this week with the story of an icon of the queer community. Of course, I actually remembered it was Pride Month, so I wanted to take a look at a badass woman, though she may not have been born biologically one.
Right on.
Marsha P. Johnson was born Malcolm Michaels Jr. Obviously, Marsha, at least socially, would transition later in life, and she is most well known as Marsha, so we will continue to gender her as a woman.
Nice.
And before anybody yells about us supporting mental illness, being queer or trans has not been a disease in the DSM since the 1970s, so try again.
Yeah.
Marsha was born on August 24th, 1945, in Elizabeth, New Jersey, to Alberta Claiborne and Malcolm Michaels Sr. Alberta was a housekeeper from Elizabeth, and Malcolm was an assembly worker at GM who moved to Linden, New Jersey from Virginia during the Second Great Migration. And if y'all don't know what that is, it's when the black people left all the rural places and went to the cities because there was better job opportunities and more community there.
Right.
Marsha's parents separated when she was just about 3, but although she lived with her mother, her father stayed active in her life. During her younger years, Elizabeth was a segregated city and early starting point for the civil rights activism. When Marsha was 5, she began to wear girls' clothing. Her mother did not approve, and her peers made fun of her relentlessly. But Marsha would not stop dressing this way until she was raped at 13 by until she was raped by a 13-year-old boy. Boys. Marsha spent much of her time watching movies at the Little Theater and attended the Mount Teman African Methodist Episcopal Church religiously every week. Sometimes Alberta would go to drag shows at Billy's Tavern, a local gay bar, which is kind of shocking to think that there was a gay bar in the 1940s and 50s, even in New Jersey.
Right.
Seems a little, what's the word I'm looking for? Not liberal, but like just a little ahead of its time.
Sure.
She attended the Edison High School, now named the Thomas A. Edison Career and Technical Academy. She was regularly in parades and served as the drum major for her high school. In 1962, at age 17, Marsha joined the Navy, but her enlistment would be short lived. She would be honorably discharged while undergoing training in Chicago after she punched a man who tried to assault her. But you know what? Good for her.
Hell yeah.
And she was honorably discharged, so it will. It would be in that same year that Marsha attended her first drag ball in New York City. She began to wait tables to save up money to move to Manhattan, which she did after graduating high school. That was in 1963, and Marsha moved with $15 and a bag of clothes. She was able to get a job working at the Child's Restaurant, but had to beg and use survival sex work to make ends meet, which she was arrested often for. Marsha enjoyed spending time on 42nd Street in Times Square, whether working the streets or just to hang, I don't know. But it was here that she first met Sylvia Rivera. Sylvia Rivera, who is also a gay liberationist and transgender rights activist. In their First meeting, Marcia showed Sylvia the one characteristic most people remember about her generosity. Marcia treated Sylvia to a meal at Child's with the money she had earned begging. This would not be the only time Marcia's kindness shined. Activist Ricky Wicker recalled an incident where she stole a loaf of bread to feed a homeless person. Ricky called her, quote, the most generous person he ever knew, end quote. Sylvia would not be the only person Marcia met in the area that would later go on to collaborate with her. She also befriended Augusto Machado, who was a performance and visual artist, activist, and archivist who was a major player in the New York City downtown art scene in the 60s. You ever heard of Augusto Machado?
Think so.
Yeah, I would be surprised. Sadly, Marcia did not have stable housing and would sleep at friends' houses, hotels, and bathhouses. She often went out on the town in quote unquote partial drag, which, if you listen to RuPaul, we're all born naked. Everything after that is drag. At first, she went by the name Black Marsha, but eventually went with Marsha P. Johnson. According to some, Marsha was a reworking of her old nickname Mickey. Johnson came from the Howard Johnson Hotel in Elizabeth, and as for the P, well, that depended on when you asked Marsha. Most often, she would tell people it meant pay it no mind, but she did tell one friend that it stood for Piola. Marcia did not have the funds to dress quote unquote high drag, but she was crafty and imaginative. She would use fake fruit, Christmas lights, and even thrown away flowers to make flower crowns. By 1969, Marcia was living fully as a woman and would go on to get hormone therapy. She had hoped someday to get gender affirming surgery as well. Now, we cannot talk about Marcia without touching on the topic of the Stonewall riots. These riots took place at the Stonewall Inn in Greenwich Village and was the result of a police raid and attempted arrest. I thought it was pretty cool. Yesterday, we were at the Hendersonville Pride and ran into this black lady that had a tent, and she was talking. They're actually having like a Stonewall party
Yeah.
coming soon. Actually, it's, I think, the day after Pride is the anniversary. So,
Yeah.
um, although Marcia had a different remembrance of when the riots took place, we know they started in the early morning hours of June 28th, 1969. She had organized a party, and after many of the people did not show up, Marcia went to the Stonewall to dance and blow off steam. Many sources credit Marcia with starting the riot after the quote unquote shot glass heard around the world, when she allegedly picked up a shot glass and threw it at a mirror, screaming, quote, I got my civil rights, end quote. But other sources say she did not arrive until about 2 o'clock in the morning.
Hmm.
On the first night, Marcia was helping people such as Mama Jean Devante, who Marcia tended to after she was beaten by the police. On the second night, Marcia climbed up on a light pole and dropped a bag with something heavy in it onto a police car, destroying the windshield. Yes, Marcia, yes.
Was it a bowling ball?
Possibly. After the riots, Marcia became involved in two different organizations, the GAA and the Gay Liberation Front, or the GLF. In the GAA, Marcia petitioned for a gay and lesbian non discrimination bill. She was also arrested while protesting the Vietnam War in Bryant Park, an arrest that was publicized by the GAA. This publicity led to the charges being dropped. On June 28th, 1970, the anniversary of the riots, Marcia marched with the GAA during the first Christopher Street Liberation Day. In September, Marcia participated in the Weinstein Hall occupation that protested the cancellation of gay dances at Weinstein Hall at New York University. Marcia and other queens such as Andorra Martin, Bambi Lamore, and Bubbles Rose Lee slept in the basement, and cooked and cleaned and fundraised for the occupation. It was during this time Marcia floated the idea of starting a group for trans people called Street Transvestite Action Revolutionaries, or STAR for short. Now, obviously, we don't use the word transvestite anymore when talking about gay people, um, but they did then. That was the terminology they used, and so I'm going to keep using it.
NSA kick me out.
Okay. Anyways, as I was saying, I'm going to use that word because that's what they used during this time. That's what they called themselves. Normally, I wouldn't.
Yeah.
On September 25th, the occupation was broken up by police, leading them to march through Greenwich Village. Marsha and Sylvia were both involved with the Street Transvestites for Gay Power organization and were both involved at two protests that took place in the city. One was at NYU, and their demands were, quote, the creation of a gay community center, open enrollment for gay people, and the right to be openly gay without fear of retaliation, end quote. Other protests, which I was like, let me scribble down this name onto my list of history things to cover because, woo, I bet that one's a fucking doozy.
Right.
Their other protest was of Bellevue Hospital. It is currently the oldest public hospital in the country, where they protested the psychiatric abuse of patients, the forced sterilization of the queer community, and demanded health and dental care that would be controlled by the community. So look for the Bellevue Hospital in the future on this one, folks, because shit's going to be bad. During this time, the two women were caring for roughly 20 homeless transgender youths out of a semi-truck trailer. They used sex work and begging to get money to feed everyone, and they treated them like their own children. When drivers came to pick up the trailer, Marsha and Sylvia protested, concerned one of the kids was still inside, which they were, and they ended up being taken to California.
Jesus.
They got trucked all the way across the country.
What the hell?
Not great. Like, you don't check. You're not like checking your truck to make sure there's not, or your trailer to make sure there's not somebody living in it.
Right.
Right. Like, we know that you're supposed to, just working at the place that you work at.
Yeah.
This event prompted the first official meeting of STAR in late 1970. Marsha was nominated to be the president, but she declined the position, instead taking the vice president position while Sylvia took the presidency. The first order of business was to open a permanent shelter for homeless kids, which would be called Star House, and 'twas rented from the mafia. I mean, who else is going to rent a house to a bunch of transgender folk in the 70s?
It's true.
November of 1970, Star House would open its doors to a rotating group of between 15 to 25 people. Marsha and Sylvia were the house mothers and again engaged in survival sex work to pay for the house. The quote unquote kids were tasked with getting food. It was during this time Marsha met Thomas Gerald Davis, who we will call Candy. They met through the Star House and soon started a relationship. The two had a ceremony, though they could not legally get married, and Candy gifted Marsha a dog to represent their relationship. A dog. However, their relationship was not all roses, as Candy had a drug addiction and was not fond of Marsha having transgender friends. Which, like, sure she is, though.
Right.
Which, I mean, it's kind of like when my dad didn't like the fact that all my friends were white.
Mm-hmm.
Sir, my mom is white. You made that choice.
Right.
What are you talking about? Anyways, in 1971, Candy would be shot and killed by an off-duty officer he was trying to rob for drug money. After his funeral, the dog he had gotten for Marsha also died. This sent her into a mental breakdown, and she was admitted to Ward's Island State Hospital. During her time there, Marsha claimed to have a vision of a spirit named Oxygen, who told her to remain celibate and to find joy in other things. Marsha took this as a call to start fully accepting her identity while avoiding romantic relationships. Starr joined a march put on by GAA to the hospital where Marsha was being held, one to hold a vigil in her honor, and two to protest the treatment of gay people in hospitals and prisons. In July of 1971, the residents of the Starr House were evicted, starting an era of the organization bouncing around Manhattan. They had a short stint in an apartment Marsha had rented and would often find themselves having to rent hotel rooms. The group's focus began to shift to supporting the New York City Gay Rights Bill. This bill was to make discrimination against a person for their sexual orientation. While maybe not illegal, there would be consequences. Marsha, of course, supported the bill, saying this quote, I have no intention of getting a job as long as this country discriminates against homosexuals. There's only homosexuals, bisexuals, and trisexuals, darling, and there's no straight people. End quote. Star slowly came to an end over 1972 and it was dissolved after the 1973 Christopher Street Liberation Day. The gay liberation movement was fractured between those who wanted rights for transgender people and those who did not feel that they were part of the community, which I'm not going to get too much into it. That is an issue within the queer community, though. There are some people who feel like transgender people don't belong as a part of the community, and it's like, why not, though?
Right.
Why not? Um, Star was meant to march at the head of the parade, but they were prevented from marching at all. Then their banner was removed from the rally's bandstand. Sylvia, with tears in her eyes, got on stage and shamed the crowd for wanting to exclude transgender people despite their activism for the community. Sylvia was so distraught after the rally that Marcia found her in her apartment bathroom with her wrists cut.
Mm.
Marcia called an ambulance and Sylvia was taken to Bellevue where she recovered. After Star fell apart, Marcia began to perform on stage. She joined a group known as the Angels of Light, or the Angels for short. She would later join the theatrical troupe The Hot Peaches and would perform with both for many years. While Marcia had stable living during this time, her mental health was not. During one show, she got so angry she smashed the car window of a heckler, which got her admitted to Bellevue.
Mm.
Maybe don't be heckling black women, okay?
Right.
Tired of people's shit. She would routinely be gone for 2 or 3 months in the hospital getting treatment with Thorazine.
Mm.
Thorazine.
Jeez.
I would like some Thorazine treatment, please. This caused her throat pain, and she would not be able to perform until the medication got out of her system. By 1979, Marcia was homeless again, couch surfing and sleeping in gay bathhouses. In 1980, she began to live with Randy Wicker, who had invited her in one cold night, and she lived there for 12 years. Also, in 1980, Marcia was shot in the back by a taxi driver while engaging in sex work.
Jeez.
Like, what the actual fuck? Doctors attempted to remove the bullet, but they could not, and Marcia lived with the back pain for the rest of her life. In the early 1980s, Marcia met Joseph Rat- Ratansky, with whom she would have an off and on relationship with. Not sure about the relationship with Randy, but he would occasionally send Marcia on trips, like to Puerto Rico and Los Angeles, where she did sex work during the 1984 Summer Olympics.
Yeah, all right.
Good for her. During 1980, a number of cases of AIDS were sweeping through the city before it was announced the next year. By the end of 1984, Marcia was regularly visiting AIDS patients in the hospital and lighting candles for them. After she was honored at the 1985 Pride Rally, Marcia organized the first AIDS March for July of that year in LA. When a friend became ill from the disease, Marcia cared for him until his death. During this time, she was also caring for David Combs, Randy's ex husband, who was also sick with AIDS. She would act as nurse while Randy was at work, and all of this pushed her into another breakdown. She damaged Randy's apartment before she was admitted to St. Mary's Hospital. It was estimated that year some 500,000 to 1 million people were AIDS positive.
Jeez.
Though she was not a member, Marsha participated in several events held by ACT UP, or the AIDS Coalition to Unleash Power, which was founded in 1987. That same year, Marsha suffered more loss as David Combs died, as did Bill Radford, a performer with the Angels of Light.
Mm.
Sadly, Marsha also received a positive HIV result, and combined with everything else, she had another breakdown, once again ending up at St. Mary's Hospital. She was released in time for the Pride rally that year, and she and Randy walked with a banner to honor David. July 2nd, 1992 would be the last time anyone saw Marsha alive. She left Randy's apartment after the Pride rally that day, with Randy assuming she was going to be headed to Los Angeles like she had talked about. On July 5th, Randy attempted to file a missing persons report, but was told he could only do that for persons under the age of 40,
Mm.
and Marsha was 46. Like,
That's a weird law.
yeah, it's not. It's not a law. It's
Oh,
not a law. Just like you don't have to wait 24 hours to report someone missing.
right.
None of that is a law. It's
Yeah,
just cops being cops.
right.
The next day, Marsha's body was found floating in the Hudson River.
Mm.
Originally, her death was ruled suicide, but many people do not agree with that. And I think it is telling we don't hear about previous suicide attempts either, even when she was in psychosis. One theory is that she attempted to cross the river while in a breakdown, but many believe she was murdered. There was a report of Marsha being harassed by four men on the 4th of July. The same witness claims they later saw one of the men fighting Marsha on the pier, calling her homophobic slurs.
Mm.
They then report that that same man was bragging about killing Marsha at a bar later that evening, and he
Jeez.
has never been questioned.
That's crazy.
Her autopsy report shows blunt force trauma to the back of the head, and I will say an independent medical examiner looked over the autopsy report and claims that the injuries to her body, including missing eyes and a hole in her head, could have happened while she was in the water. Which missing eyes, sure. The hole in the head, mm, it's a little more debatable.
Right.
Marsha's death came during a time when the queer community was under literal attack, including violence from law enforcement. Marsha was very vocal about these issues, being one of several activists that would march and protest, demanding justice for victims. And while she kept putting herself on the front lines, she was concerned that her and Randy's involvement could get them murdered.
Right.
Marsha would have three different funerals, one held by Randy in Hoboken, one held by her family in Elizabeth, and the third held at that church of the village in New York. After the service ended, the attendees marched to Christopher Street Pier, where Marsha's body was put until the coroner came to get her.
Dang.
And that is the life and legacy of Marsha P. Johnson. There is a lot more that she did. There's a lot more to her story. Y'all know I'm just here as like a starting point. If you want to know more about her, go look her up. There's a website, there's books about her.
Yeah.
Um, and as we celebrate Pride Month, let's honor those ancestors who worked their whole lives just to be seen as equal.
Right.
So, Bill, you have any thoughts about Marsha B. Johnson?
Well, I think the work that she did was great. Like everybody should be able to be themselves.
They really should. Um, and that's what people want. Everybody's like, oh, I don't want it shoved down my throat. What? Just representation? Just people existing?
I was a kid who got made fun of because I had long hair.
Mhm.
So yeah, I think she's great.
And nowadays, the snotty nosed Rez kid says, long hair don't care.
Yep.
Long hair don't care. If you feel the type of way about my name, just say long hair don't care. Sorry. Love them.
Right.
Yeah, Marsha was, an icon, and I don't think she gets the credit
Yeah, I mean, I've
she
definitely
deserves.
never heard of her, so
Yeah. Don't you
she
just
needs some
love
recognition.
her fruit outfit?
Yeah,
I love her fruit.
she's fabulous.
Fabulous. Fabulous. She's like, "There's a dollar store over there. I bet I could make something."
Right.
Love that for her. Alright, friends,
She's
well,
definitely like all the Dollar Generals nowadays.
oh my god. Thrift stores.
Yep.
Thrifting, thrifting, thrifting. Alright, friends, well, we hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Happy Pride.
Happy Pride.
Take pride in who you are and just live your fucking life. As long as you ain't hurting anybody, I don't give a shit what you do.
Yeah.
Alright, guys. Hope you guys have a good week, and we will see you guys later.
Be kind to each other.
Love you. Bye.
Love you guys. Bye.